Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. So this is lesson number 35 from the three fundamental principles of Usul al-Thalatha. And inshallah today we'll finish off the Ru'us al-Taghut, which is a statement of Shaykh al-Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, which he said, Ru'us al-Khamsa, Iblisu la'anahu Allah, wa man ubida wa huwa rad, wa man da'a ناس إلى عبادة نفسه ومن ادعى شيئا من علم الغيب أو من أمور الغيب ومن حكم بغير ما أنزل الله. So right now we're at this part. ومن حكم بغير ما أنزل الله. Alright, so I told you inshallah from previous lessons, and of course this is something that has been spoken about a lot over the past week or so through different videos and different audios and Telegram and on YouTube. So inshallah what I'm going to use is I'm actually going to use the explanation of Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah when he's dealing with these ayat, because the thing that the Khawarij keep doing is that they only say وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, and they failed to mention that there are two other scenarios, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. So if you don't mention the other two, then the people will never question you about, like, okay, well, what about these other two scenarios, and how, when does a ruler fall into this category or that category or the other category, and how would we know that? Of course, they hide that knowledge from the people, similar to like what the Jews used to do whenever like anything that was sent down was against them or not in accordance to their desires, they would hide it. So this is what you see the Khawarij following this type of the Sunnah of the Yahud, Allahumma musta'an, where they only mention a part of it, and they kind of hide the rest, and they don't want to talk about the rest. You never hear them talking about the other two scenarios. So inshallah I'm going to be reading from Tafseer of Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah in Surah Al-Ma'idah for these ayat. So he said, لو قال قائل, he said, if a person were to say, قوله تعالى فأولئك هم الكافرون, فهل المعنى فأولئك هم الكافرون فيما حكموا فيه أو الكافرون الخارجون عن الملة? So he said in the ayat, the first ayat, he says, are these people kafirun, like disbelievers in the thing that they judged with, or are they kafirun in the fact that they have left the religion? All right, so this is the statement. Now, of course, we understand that this goes back to the understanding of, is this kufr? Does it mean kufr duna kufr? Or does it mean kufr mukhrij min al-millah? And of course we know the statement of Ibn Abbas, we know the statement of Tawus and Tafsir ibn Kathir and other books where it's kufr duna kufr. Alright, but Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen, he says, Al-Jawab, هذا محل خلاف وقد تقدم. And he said this is where there's a lot of difference of opinion. وقد تقدم, and he spoke about this previously. He said, فمن العلماء من قال إن قوله تعالى فأولئك هم الكافرون هذا فيما حكموا به. He says, so from amongst the ulama, they say that فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ فِيمَا حَكَمُوا بِهِ, that they're kafirun in their judgment, but not kafirun in the fact that they leave the religion. And this goes back to, again, the statement of Ibn Abbas, لَيْسَ الْكُفْرُ, or he said, لَيْسَ بِكُفْرٍ يَنْقُلْ عَنَ الْمِلَّةِ. This is not the type of kufr that takes a person out of religion. And in another statement, he said, هِيَ بِهِ كُفْرٍ, which is a statement of the kufr duna kufr, that the person is not a kafir that leaves the religion. This is a statement of Ibn Abbas, and the kufr duna kufr is a statement of Tawus. So we have هذا فيما حكموا به كقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اثنتان في الناس هما بهم كفر. So بهم kufr, it means this goes back to kufr duna kufr. It means that it is an act of kufr, but it does not take them out of the religion. الطعن في النسب والنياحة على الميت. So he mentioned two things, the Prophet ﷺ, because these are the affairs of Jahiliyyah. He said, ta'an fi nasab, it means that you insult a person's ancestry. وَنِيَاحَةُ عَلَى الْمَيِّتِ, or the woman who weeps uncontrollably over the dead person. So these two things, bihim kufr, but obviously this does not take a person out of the religion. So he said, وَمَعَ هَذَا مَعَ أَنَّ هَذَا لَا يُخْرِجْ مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ, with the understanding that this does not take a person out of Islam. فَعَلَيْهِ يَكُونَ الْمَعْنَى هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ فِيمَا حَكَمُوا بِهِ فَقَطْ. So this shows that their judgment It's an act of kufr. By using something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not sent down, it's an act of kufr, but it does not take a person out of the religion. لا الخارجون عن الملة, and they have not left the religion. وقيل هم الكافرون أي الموصوفون بالكفر المخرج عن الملة. And the other statement is that they are actually kafirun, and with the kufr that takes a person out of the religion. ولكن الأدلة دلت على أن هذا مقيد بالشروط. And he said that the evidence for this, it shows that this is only by certain conditions. So certain conditions that the person he leaves the religion. الأول أن يكون الحاكم عالما بحكم الله. He said first off that the ruler is knowledgeable with the legislation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this affair that he's judging by. He said وَالثاني أن يكون عالما بمخالفة هذا الحكم لحكم الله. And also to be knowledgeable, and he said aliman. Now I want the people to focus on this. He did not say arifan. He said aliman. Alright, so from the conditions is ilm. And ilm is not like al-ma'rifah. Because ma'rifah, it is only to understand like a very superficial understanding. Like for example, a lot of people, they understand the halal and haram in a very, very superficial, very surface understanding. But when we say aliman, now this is a different thing, because ilm is not the same as ma'rifah. Because ilm, it means that you have knowledge of the tafasil, like you have knowledge of the details, whereas ma'rifah, you don't have knowledge of the details. So there's a big difference between a person saying وَثَانِي أَن يَكُنْ عَالِمًا أو أن يكون عارفًا. So the Shaykh huna, the Shaykh here is clearly saying aliman. Aliman, that means that he has knowledge of the details of how this goes against the judgment of Allah, not just a surface understanding. من مخالفة هذا الحكم لحكم الله, and how this judgment goes against the legislation of Allah. He said وَثَالِث, and the third thing is أن يجعله بديلا عن حكم الله. And this is if the person makes it taking out the hukm of Allah and put this in its place. Because obviously you will not trade something for another thing, except for the thing that you're trading for is better than the thing that you traded from. So by making a badil, and this is also, if you go back and listen to the Fatawa of Shaykh Salih Fawzan, he also always uses the word badal. Whenever he makes takfir of the person who like yahkum bi ghayri ma anzal Allah, he always used the word badal. And badal is because you're putting something in the place of something that you think that the thing that you're putting in the place is better than the thing that you're removing. So by removing the hukm of Allah, they're putting something else, their own judgments or man-made laws in this place. They're saying like, okay, this is better. But this goes back to the understanding of the person. Is that really the purpose of why he's doing it? He said, وَرَابِعْ أَنْ لَا يَرْضَى بِحُكْمِ اللَّهِ. And the fourth condition is that he's not pleased. So he's making the badal, but it's because he's not pleased with the judgment or the legislation of Allah. إِذَا تَمَّتْ هَذِهِ الشُّرُوطِ. And he said, if these conditions have been met, صَارَ حِينَئِذٍ خَارِجًا عَنِ الْمِلَّةِ. Then this person has now left the religion. And this is not just for the ruler. This is for anybody. This is for anybody who is not pleased with the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the judgment of His Messenger, and prefers the judgment. Like for example, if you have a dispute amongst a Muslim and you prefer to go to the courts of the kuffar and handle it in the courts of the kuffar, then you also fall into this. If you're pleased with the judgment of the kuffar over the judgment, like instead of going to an imam from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah who understands these rulings and using him as a judge between you and your affairs, you go to the courts of the kuffar, and then you get like a kafir lawyer, and then you go into a kafir judge, and also you will fall under these guidelines. Because now you're more pleased with the judgment of the kuffar than you are with the judgment of Islam. No, if we have any type of disputes, we go back to Allah and His Messenger. And if we don't have knowledge of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger said, we solve our disputes between us. We find a person who has knowledge of these things, and we put him as a judge between us, a Muslim. A Muslim that's on the Quran and the Sunnah, we put that person as a judge between us, and we settle all of our affairs between each other. We don't go to the courts of the kuffar. So this is not just for the rulers. This is for all of us. So the people need to get that straight. So if you have an issue, these same types of individuals that are so quick to go to the courts of the kuffar to settle all their disputes, right? But then they're quick to judge a ruler and say that he's left Islam because of something. Allahumma musta'an. He said, فَإِذَا حَكَمَ بِغَيْرِ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ وَهُوَ لَا يَعْلَمُ بِحُكْمِ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَكْفُرُ. He said, if a person judges by other than or rules by other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down, and he doesn't know the legislation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has judged in this affair, فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَكْفُرُ. He does not become a kafir. لأن من شرط الحكم بالكفر أن يكون الإنسان عالما به. He said because one of the conditions of the judging, passing the judgment of a person that he's left the religion is that he has to be aliman. Again, that word alim. All right, aliman به. فكيف إذا حكم بتأويل ممن حرف الكلمة عن مواضعه من علماء السوء. So he said, what about the person who judges by other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down because he's taking the advice of one of the ulama as-su. So he has like a person that's in charge of religious affairs because he lacks the knowledge of religious affairs. So he has this person that advises him and he goes back to him and asks him for advice, and this person misguides him or gives him advice that's contradictory to the Quran and the Sunnah, but he thinks that he trusts the person. So what about this person? He's obviously he's got more leeway, not leeway, but he's got more of an excuse. So he said, فَيَكُونَ هَذَا أَشَدَّ عُذْرًا لَهُ وَأَبْعَدَ عَنْ تَكْفِيرِهِ. He said, so this person, he would have more of an excuse. He would have a stronger excuse, and he'd be further away from being made takfir of him. So the Shaykh also went on to mention other scenarios in regards with the conditions that he mentioned previously. He said, وَإِذَا قَالَ هُوَ يَعْلَمُ بِحُكْمِ اللَّهِ. So he's knowledgeable of the judgment of Allah. وَهُوَ رَاضٍ بِحُكْمِ اللَّهِ. And he's pleased with the hukm of Allah. لكنه يرى أنه لا يصلح في هذا الوقت مثلا. But he says he's knowledgeable of the legislation of Allah, and he's pleased with it. But he says, but it's not good for our time. You know, our time it's not good. It's not suitable for our time. He said, كُنَّ هذا كُفر. He said that this is disbelief. لأن الشريعة الإسلامية باقية إلى يوم القيامة. Because he said the Sharia is suitable for all times, all the way up until the day of judgment, that this is going to remain, and this is the judgment for the people, for all times. There's no specific time that it works and another time that it doesn't work. No. It's for all times and all people and all places up until the day of judgment. فإن الذي شرعها علم عز وجل بما يصلح الخلق. So of course the person who legislated, not the person, astaghfirullah, he said the one that legislated this, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said he's the knowledgeable. He's knowledgeable about what's good for the people, what's good for his creation, because he's the creator. So he's created mankind. So he's the most knowledgeable about what is good for the creation. وَعَلِمَ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا خَاتِمُ النَّبِيِّينَ. And he knew that the Muhammad is the seal of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَلَا بُدَّ أَن تَكُونَ شَرِيعَتُهُ صَالِحَةً لِكُلِّ زَمَانٍ وَمَكَانٍ إِلَى آخِرِ الدُّنْيَا. So he said, so since knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's the one, he's knowledgeable about what's good for the creation, and he's knowledgeable about the last prophet, that this is the final Nabi, that there's not going to be another Nabi, which means that there's not going to be another legislation after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, then it's la bud, and it has to be that this Sharia is what's going to be suitable for the people until and every time and every place up until the day until the last day of this world. So this is it. There's nothing else, and this is what is obligatory for the people to rule by. He said, لكن يجب أن يعلم أولا. He said, but the person should be taught first, and this of course goes back to the nasiha of the ulama, going back to the ruler and teaching him and explaining to him, especially if he has a person who's giving him wrong information. He said, لأنه قد يلبس على بعض الحكام ممن لا يعرف أحكام الشريعة فيأتي جلساء السوء وقرناء السوء ويقولون هذا يحتمل التأويل ويحتمل كذا ويحتمل كذا، ثم يريدون العبارة المشهورة القيمة الشريعة الإسلامية جاءت بجلب المصالح ودفع المفاسد، ويتراءى لهم هذا الشيء صالح، ثم يقولون للولاة اجعلوه سنة واجعلوه نظاما، مع أن الإنسان قاصر النظر. قد يبدو له في هذه الحال أنه صالح لكن عواقبه فاسدة. So here he's also going back to the statement about, you know, that the person might have people that are next to him that advise him, that he seeks counsel with, that tell him, oh, but this can be interpreted like this, and this can be interpreted like this, and then they come up to him and tell him that the Sharia of Islamia is basically is you know to bring the what benefits the people and to push back anything that causes corruption. So if we see something outside of the Sharia that, you know, that we can use that brings good and pushes back corruption and gets rid of and fights corruption, and we use it. And they give these types of Ikhwani type principles to them, this is not an Ikhwani principle, by the way. This is a Qa'id al-Fiqhiyya, but they use it in the wrong way. And it goes back to the statement of Kalimatul Haq أريدت بها الباطل أو أريد بها باطل. So this is from that bab where they take a statement of truth but they twist it in a way to like try to introduce qawaneen or legislation that's outside of the Quran and the Sunnah. So he said اجعله سنة وجعله نظاما مع أن الإنسان قاصر النظر. So of course the wali al-amr, if he doesn't have knowledge of the religion and he relies on these people and he trusts these people, then he'll take their word for it. He'll take his word for it. That no, it's not an obligation and it doesn't take me out of Islam if I use different judgments and things like that. So in this case, this person, because of these people misadvising him and misguiding him, then the people have to sit down and talk with him. Because that is from the mawani takfir, the thing that prevent the person from falling into takfir. If he is truly ignorant of these issues, then he has to be taught and he is shown the truth. And then if he rejects it, that's a whole different issue. He said, قد يبدو له في هذه الحالة أنه صالح لكن عواقبه فاسدة. He said, so he could see, like for example, from the speech of these people and from their telling this that something is good for the people, but the outcome or the consequences of that action that will cause fitna and corruption and problems in the society. فهي said فمتى علمنا أن الله حرم هذا الشيء أو أوجب هذا الشيء علمنا أن النتائج المثمرة في الواجب معلومة لكنها قد تكون مجهولة لنا معلومة في المال وكذلك المفاسد التي فيما حرم الله قد لا تكون معلومة لنا في الحاضر لكنها تعلم في المال. So he said, like basically, he said, and whenever we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made something prohibited or he's made something an obligation upon us, علمنا أن النتائج المثمرة في الواجب معلومة, that the fruits of carrying out the obligation, they're known, like the results. ولكنها قد تكون مجهولة لنا. But at the same time, some of the results of this could be we could be ignorant of. But we find them out and on as we're doing them. As we're doing the action, then we find out the fruit or the benefit of doing this action, of carrying out this action. وَكَذَلِكَ الْمَفَاسِدِ. So he's saying the same thing about the corrupt actions. فِيمَا حَرَمَ اللَّهُ قَالَ لَا تَكُنْ مَعْلُومَةً لَنَا. So we might not understand the evil the evil consequences that these actions have, that they carry at the end, at the start of the action. But then we find them out as we go along. So it's like, for example, like the people with the protest and the rebellion and all that, the people tried that before. So when they tried it, they thought that their actions were good, and they thought that they were bringing about a change, and they thought that they were standing up against oppression. But then they realized how many people got killed, and go back and look at the rebellion against Al-Hajjaj, and just to see an understanding of that. And the time where there's still Sahaba alive, and then go back also and look at like 2011 and look at what happened. No good came about any of these people's rebellion. So through the action, as the action goes along, we start to see the mafasid. We start to see the corrupt, the very, very, very corrupt results of their actions. And now we understand, because we see that, now we're not going to get stung from that hole again, because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that إن المؤمن لا يلدغ من جحر واحد مرتين. A believer never gets stung from the same hole twice. So once we've been stung from that hole, and we see that through history, and that's the real wise person will read through history and see that this has never worked for people before. It's not going to work for us now. It's definitely not going to work for us now, and especially when we got weapons. Now, like before, they had to fight with swords. Now they got weapons that could take out hundreds of people at a time. So how do you think now that this type of foolishness, if it didn't work for them before, how is it going to work for us now? How is it going to work? It didn't work for them when they were fighting with swords and bows and arrows and riding on horseback. Now, how is it going to work for us when you're trying to stand up and rebel against governments that have militaries, that have like weapons with bullets the size of your head? Now, how do you, and then what are you going to do? Stand up with a bunch of, 30i6 or 30, lever rifles and fight against them? Come on, man. That's foolishness. You're just sending the people off to the destruction. Allahumma musta'an. So he said, وَهَذِهِ الْمَسَأَلَةٌ خَطِيرَةٌ لِلْغَايَةِ. And he said, this issue is very, very dangerous to the highest extent of danger. Because, and this is not something that people should get involved in that don't have knowledge or not studied the religion. This issue right now, dealing with the rulers and all this should be left for the ulama and the people that study this religion thoroughly. And I don't mean just the people that just studied like a couple years, like a lot of us, but I'm talking about the people who have really studied the religion, have really researched these matters and searched for the truth. Those are the people that should be talking about these issues and nobody else. He said, وهذه مسألة خطيرة للغاية لأن من الناس من يقدم على تكفير مع انتفاء شروطه. So he said, because some of the people they move forward, they like basically they jump up and they make takfir of the ruler without the conditions even being fulfilled for the takfir of the ruler. And this is what you see every day on social media from amongst these khawarij, that they're quick to make the takfir of the ruler without even fulfilling the shurut. Well, he said, وَيَحْصُلْ بِذَلِكَ شَرٌ كَثِيرٌ, and because of that, a lot of evil happens and occurs. تَمَرُّدٌ عَلَى الْحُكَامِ, or the people, they start to rebel against the rulers. وَتَضْلِيلٌ الْعَامَةِ, and then the laymen, or the common people, they become misguided because they believe these guys. وَفَوْضَى فِي الْمُجْتَمِعِ, and the societies become completely chaotic. As we've seen, even till now, Yemen has not recovered from 2011. And a lot of these countries, Syria has not recovered from 2011. And Egypt is still not economically recovered. And they'll never probably recover economically from 2011. None of these countries ever recovered. Allahumma musta'an. He said, وَدِمَاءٌ تُرَاكُمْ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. And he said, blood that gets spilt without unlawful blood gets spilt. Okay, because people get killed. Innocent people get killed. And this is not lawful. It's not lawful. If a person commits a crime, you take the punishment out on the person that committed the crime. But no, what happens is a lot of innocent people, women, children, old men, they get killed in this chaos. He said, وَاسْأَلْ مَنْ سَلَفَكَ مِنَ الْأُمَّةِ مَاذَا حَصَلَ مِنَ الْخَوَارِجَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مُعَاوِيَةَ. He said, go back and ask the people that went before about the Khawarij that made takfir of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. ثم كفروا عليا, and then after that, then they made takfir of Ali radiallahu anhu. وهم يقومون الليل ويتلون القرآن, and these are the people that stand at night in prayer and they read the Quran. وأخبر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن الصحابة وهم الصحابة يحكر أحدهم صلاته مع صلاتهم وقراءته مع قراءتهم. He said, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam even mentioned to the Sahaba that one of you would despise his own prayer, in comparison to the prayer of that person, because how much he prays. وَقِرَاءَتُهُ, and even his recitation of the Quran, مَعَ قِرَاءَتِهِمْ, because they read a lot, and then they try to, beautify the voice, and they read, and they're crying, and they seem to have all this khushu'. وَلَكِنْ لَا يَتَجَاوَزْ حَنَاجِرَهُمْ. Like the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, وَلَكِنْ, it doesn't go past their throats. They don't have any type of tadabbur. The Quran does not enter their hearts. The understanding of it does not enter their hearts. They're just doing actions, but they don't really have anything with the actions, no true knowledge. He said, وَمَعَ ذَلِكَ حَصَلَ مِنْ شَرِّهِمْ مَا لَا يَعْلَمُهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. And even with that, even with all of their prayer and their recitation of the Quran, so the evil that they cause in this earth, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the extent of it, He said, وَمَنْ قَرَأَ عَنْهُمْ وَآخِرُ الْأُمَّةِ كَأَوَّلِهَا. He said, whoever reads about them, and he said, and the last of this ummah is just like the beginning. What was good for the early generations is good for us. What was bad for them is bad for us. علم أن الخروج على الأئمة لا شك أنه مفسدة عظيمة. And he said that there's no doubt, a person who goes back and reads through the history and will understand that making khuruj and this rebellion against the rulers, that there's no doubt that there's a huge and a vast amount of corruption that comes about because of this. وَأَنَّ بَقَاءَ الْحُكَامِ عَلَى غَيْرِ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ لَا شَكَّ مَضَرَّةٌ عَظِيمَةٌ. And he said, and there's no doubt that leaving the rulers to judge by other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down, that there's also a harm for the Muslims. Alright, there's a harm, no doubt. لكن الواجب أن يدرى أشد المفسدتين. And this goes back to the statement of Shaykh Al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah when he talked about this issue in Minhaj Sunnah Nabawiyyah. And this is basically what Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen is talking about. He said, but in the end, the people have to look at which one is the lesser of the two evils. بأخفهما فإذا جرت الدماء يصعب جدا إيقافها. So he said, if the blood starts to flow, and like the blood starts to be spilt, It says very, very, very difficult to stop it. You know, once that fighting starts, it's very difficult to stop it. وأن تحقن بعد أن أريقت, and to stop the flow of the blood after it's been spilled. لكن إصلاح الحكام ربما يتحقق مع المران والمجالسة والمناصحة. So he's saying, he said the fixing the rulers, it might be carried out through soft speech, through sitting with them, and through advising them. But as far as like, if you think that you're just gonna jump to the rebellion stage and start spilling the blood, then that's you're trying to get rid of the lesser evil by carrying out the bigger evil, which is the spilling of the blood. Which is like right now, there's no blood being spilt in these countries. Right now, Sardia is not running around just chopping people's heads off for no reason. The people that they are executing are people that have actually made khuruj from the Shia and from the Khawarij. And these are people that they're known in the country. Their rhetoric is known. And anybody that incites khuruj against the Wali al-Amr, the rightful ruler that the people have given bay'ah to, then that person gets killed. Khalas, that's the judgment on that person. So what are they doing wrong? Based on the Quran, and in fact, they're acting on the Quran and the Sunnah, but these people now are trying to say that they're not. And those, and then they always use this terminology like, oh, most of the ulama are in jail. Who? Who? Who are most of the ulama in jail? Who are they? What, Salman al-Auda, the Mufsid fil Arab, the one that's been calling the Khuruj in Sardiya since the 1990s, and before that even. He's been in jail. He was Shaykh bin Baz, rahimahullah, put him in jail. And then he got out of jail after the death of Shaykh bin Baz, rahimahullah, and then he kept on with his ways of trying to incite rebellion in the country. And he's known for this. He's from the ulama. Wallahi, where is his research? Where is his fatwa? Where is anything? Where is anything that he's benefited the people with? Where is it? All he's done is get on Twitter and incite rebellion. So Allah musta'an. So what are these people talking about? These ulama that they're all locked up. Allahumma musta'an. And there's one more thing. I'm gonna actually go back 3 or 4 pages because I accidentally jumped one part where he went over the different ayats of al-kafirun wa dhalimun wal fasiqun. So he said here, Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he said, ولكن ليعلم أن من لم يحكم بما أنزل الله إما أن يكون لطمع وما أن يكون لكفر بما أنزل الله وإما أن يكون لعدوان وظلم على الغير. So he gave 3 scenarios. He said to know that a person who judges by other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down is either one is because of greed. He just wants money. He's trying to get wealthy off of this. وَإِمَّا أَن يَكُنْ لِلْكُفْرِ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ. And he said, or it's because of the person has complete disbelief with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. He said, وَإِمَّا أَن يَكُونَ لِعُدْوَانٍ وَظُلْمٍ عَلَى الْغَيْرِ. And he said either that or it's because of enmity and hatred between him and another person. He said, فَإِنْ كَانَ لِطَمَعٍ فَإِنَّهُ فَاسِقٌ. He said if he's doing it out of greed or to get money or whatever, then he becomes a fasiq. And this is the أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. He said كَقَاضٍ تَنَازَعَ عِنْدَهُ رَجُلَانِ فَأَعْطَاهُ أَحَدُهُمَا رِشْوَةً فَحَكَمَ بِغَيْرِ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ طَلَبًا لِلرِّشْوَةِ وَالطَّمَعِ هَذَا نَقُولُ إِنَّهُ فَاسِقٌ. So he gives the example of a judge where 2 people come to him for a judgment and one person gives him a rishwa, which is a bribery, to judge on his behalf, even though he's the oppressor. So he does that because of him wanting the money, not because of him wishing to order a judge by other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. He said, فَهَذَا إِنَّهُ فَاسِقٌ. He said, this is the person, he's a sinful person. But this doesn't take him out of Islam. He said, الثاني رجل تخاصم إليه رجلان وكان بينه وبين أحدهما عداوة فحكم عليه بالحق معه. نقول هذا ظالم معتدي ليس له غرض في الحكم عليه لكن يريد أن ينتقم منه لأنه يكرهه أو بينه وبينه سوء التفاهم وهذا أعظم وأشد من الأول لأن الأول له منفعة قد تدعو النفس إليها أما الثاني فليس له غرض إلى العدوان فهو أشد وأعظم بلا شك. So he said that the next example is 2 people, they come for a judgment, and he said between one of these guys and the judge is an issue. Like the judge doesn't like him for whatever, and he gives different scenarios. He said so he judges in favor of the other person, the person that is not even on the haqq. All right, the guy that he doesn't like, he's got the haqq. But the judge judges with the other guy just out of hatred for this guy. He said, نقول هذا ظالم معتدي. He said, this is an oppressive transgressor. He's transgressing against the rights of his brother. ليس له غرض في حكم عليه. He said he's got no objective with judging, judging against him. لكن يريد أن ينتقم منه. But all he wants to do is just get revenge from him. لأنه يكرهه, because he hates him, أو بينه وبينه سوء التفاهم, or because they have some type of misunderstanding between them. وهذا أعظم وأشد من الأول. And he said, and this is more severe and greater than the first one. The first one is the person that accepts rishwa or bribery. لأن الأول له منفعة. He said the first guy, he benefits something from this. He gets money. He gets something. Even though it's haram, but he gets something. So you can understand like why he would do it. But this guy, he gets nothing. All he gets is just like he gets to get revenge against somebody he doesn't like. He said, منفعة قد تدعو النفس إليها وما الثاني فليس له غرض. He has no objective. إلا العدوان, except for enmity, except for just to carry out his hatred for this person. فهو أشد وأعظم بلا شك. So he's more severe, and his issue is greater with no doubt. And he said this is the person that's the ظالم. He said الثالث أن يحكم بغير ما أنزل الله كراهة لما أنزل الله. And he said now the third person is the person that judges by other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down, out of hatred for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. أو اعتقاد منه أن ما حكم به خير من حكم الله عز وجل. Or, so he's given different scenarios. He said one, the person just despises what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. He doesn't like it. Kafir. He said, or he has the belief that what he judges with, by his own laws that he comes up with in his own mind, is better than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. Again, kafir. And this also goes back to the people. You got to understand that this is not just for the ruler. It's not just for the ruler. You have people that try to use their own logic, and they think that their logic is better than the understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah based on the understanding of the Salaf, and they'll put their logic forward, and they'll put the Quran and the Sunnah to the back, on the back burner while they spew their logic. And these are the same people that fall into these things, and these are the same people. The same people that fall into this category of using their logic and ignoring the adillah are the same people that are making takfir on these rulers. Allahu musta'an. But you got to understand that this also applies to them. This applies to us all. It's not just for the rulers. There's no judgment that's specific for the rulers. This is for all of us. All right. So he said, أنه مخير بين يحكم بما أنزل الله أو بغير ما أنزل الله. So he said, or he has a choice, right? He's mukhayyir. He has a choice to judge by, like, nobody's putting pressure on him, right? So he has the choice. He has the complete control. He could judge by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down, or he could just make up his own little man-made laws or anything. But وما أنزل الله فهذا يكون كافرا خارجا عن الإسلام. But he chooses to هو مخير بين يحكم بما أنزل الله أو غير ما أنزل الله. But he chooses obviously to judge by what like other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down, because he sees that as being better or more beneficial or whatever. Then this person has left Islam. He said لأنه كره الإسلام, because he hates Islam. أو ظن أن غيره أحسن منه, or he thinks that other than Islam, something from other than Islam is better than what's in Islam. أو أن غيره مثله, or he thinks that something other than from man-made laws is on the same level as what. So any of these three scenarios, the person leaves Islam, whether he's a ruler, whether he's not a ruler. So if he hates Islam and he hates the judgment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down and his messenger, then he's a kafir. Or he thinks that something from man-made laws is better, he's a kafir. Or if he thinks that something is on the same level, then also he's a kafir. والله عز وجل يقول ومن أحسن من الله حكما لقوم يوقنون. He said, and who is better? ومن أحسن من الله حكما. Who's a better judge than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Better in legislation than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because obviously He created mankind. He knows what's best for them. لقوم يوقنون, for people that have certainty. He said, لا أحد أحسن من الله. Nobody is better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this, because He's the creator, obviously. فإذا حكم وهو يعتقد أنه مثل حكم الله. So if he judges and he thinks that if he judges by something and he thinks that it's like the same or it's on the same level as the legislation of Allah, فقد كذب. And then he's a liar. فَقَدْ كَذَبَ مَا تَدُلُّ عَلَيْهِ الْآيَةِ. Then he's lied about what is contained in the meaning that's contained in this ayah. He's lied about it. And he said, وَهُوَ قَوْلُهُ وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حُكْمًا. And who is better than Allah? Because obviously the answer is nobody. Nobody. وَإِذَا اعْتَقَدَ أَنَّهُ خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ. And if he thinks he has the belief that is better than the legislation of Allah, فإنه أشر وأقبح من الذي قال إنه مساو له. Then he is worse and more evil than the person who says it's on the same level. So all of this, as you can understand, is not as simple as just saying, oh, they celebrate Halloween, we have to make khuruj on them. Oh, the kuffar. Oh, like all these khawarij are like spewing out of their mouths now because all they got some type of enmity and hatred with Sardiya. This issue is a lot deeper. And as you understand that this is the speech of Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen, and you don't see Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen making a blanket statement of takfir on anybody, on any of the rulers, and he there's detail involved in it. And for the people that don't understand the detail, then the obligation for them is to keep their mouth shut. To keep their mouth shut. And all of this, to understand the detail and understand the ruler and why he's doing what he's doing, you have to sit down with him. And that's for the ulama. And these people are sitting on YouTube and TikTok and all these other people making takfir of the rulers while they're sitting in the West under the rule of the kuffar, and they're trying to make these judgments in the lands of the Muslims that they don't even want to live in. Yeah, this is not accepted. This is not accepted, especially from a people who have a bunch of secular educational backgrounds, who have never studied the religion. They're not known for studying the religion. So why would people listen to them? Why would people listen to them? So this is the understanding of the Salaf. This is the understanding of the Salaf from before, and this is our understanding today. Nothing's going to change in this religion, and nothing changes in our understanding of the religion, because as we know, what was good for the first part of this ummah is good for the last part of this ummah. What was bad for the first part of this ummah is bad for the last part of this ummah, and we're not going to change that. And we're going to continue to warn against this corruptive ideology. It's a corrupt ideology, Allah Musta'an, which causes nothing but chaos. And I'm telling you, and everybody knows this, wallahi, all those people that are calling the khuruj, they're going to call the khuruj while they're sitting in the comfort of their own homes in a kafir country, while Muslims go off to their deaths in the Muslim countries. And what are they going to do for them? How are they going to help them? How are they going to assist them? What are they going to do? Nothing. What are they going to do? Tweet some tweets? They're going to put some stuff on Twitter saying how sad they feel about all the people dying in the Muslim countries. Man, shut up. See, these types of people, wallahi, they cause more problems for the Muslims than anybody on the face of this earth. These same people, they cause more damage in Islam than the kuffar all combined together, because they're seeking to destroy Islam from the inside. And if you look at the head of all of these people, look at the head of all these groups of Hizb ut-Tahrir and all these people, look at their backgrounds. And I advise the people constantly, when you hear somebody talking about these issues of khuruj and the hukam, go back and read their backgrounds and see how vague their biographies are. Go back and read the biographies of all of these people, of Al-Andalusi, of Daniel, of Haytham al-Haddad, and all these people. Oh, he sat with a number of notable scholars. Who? And go back and ask the students of those scholars if they even know who these individuals are. So the point is, we have to, you don't just sit here and just take knowledge from anybody, or just take anything from anybody. This is your religion, and each person's going to be held accountable for what they say. Even if they're taken from these people, but they're the ones taking it and then going out on social media and spreading this corrupt ideology, they're going to be held accountable for this too. Each person is going to be held accountable for this. Wallahu musta'an. You do not want to be held accountable for that type of corruption in Muslim society on the Day of Judgment. Wa ila huna subhanaka wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.